So our second speaker on our Swiss webinar today is Callie Smith from Huntley Swift Group, who have got a slight change of name, which I'll let Callie explain in her intro. And she's going to talk to us about the threats that our Swifts unfortunately face, but about some of the things that we can all do to help them, and yeah, how we can conserve these magnificent birds. So Callie, over to you.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me. I hope you can all hear me okay. Yeah, it's a bit mean of you to ask me to follow on from Edward, but I'll do my best. So I've got a few slides. Unfortunately, there's a lot of depressing wee bits on there as to the list of issues that Swift are facing at the moment. And I think, as Catherine said at the beginning of the event, we've got our work cut out for us in trying to look after them. So there's plenty of things we can do, though. That's what I'll try and go over in the slides as quick as I can. I've got a lot of text on the slides simply for reference for later, really. So but I'll read through them as we go and try and fit in as much as I possibly can. Okay. So yeah, a swift decline. I'm just gonna see if I could move my other screen. Hang on, sorry. It's okay, it'll be fine. So Common Swift and House Martin actually were red listed in December 2021. That's on the Birds of Conservation Concern report number 5, which assesses the status of all regularly occurring birds in the UK. So a red list is not a great thing for them to be sitting under. And the 3 factors I think really you could say are responsible for the decline. Climate change, of course, that's a webinar in itself. In fact, a whole season of webinars, I would say, for climate change. I'm not going to go into lots of detail. I'm just going to run through things. Obviously, we're aware of disastrous weather occurrences around the world, more so now than ever before. And these can affect our migratory birds, and they take quite a hit as far as that's concerned. There's a lot of swifts and migratory birds have been caught up in storms and things like this, but there's lots to be said, although I haven't got the time to go into detail. Habitat loss, seasonal changes, they're all affecting our migratory birds. And then we've got global insect decline. Well, I think we're all aware of that. It's been said that the insect abundance is reducing by, I think it's 2% every year. There's lots of stats about anyway, but we all know without stats that our insects are in serious decline. And so obviously for insectivorous birds, that's a big worry. And I have to say, I firmly believe that it's got a lot to do with their decline as well. There's many things that are affecting our insects, obviously, and one of them, I believe, is quite an epidemic, is LED lighting, which is affecting our insects. But again, it's something for a complete webinar. So maybe, Kieran, you could have a look at that. But plenty to be said about that. And then, of course, there's loss of nest sites as well. Well, the loss of nest sites is a problem. All these things are a problem globally for all the swifts wherever they breed. But a loss of nest sites is something that we can at least possibly address a little bit easier than the other 2 factors there. And there's something that we can all, every one of us really can do something about, which is more the focus on my talk today is how to provide nesting opportunities for the swifts. Okay, so a quick run through here of the issues. The swifts nesting habits, rather. The swifts will return to the UK in late April and early May. They are 100% nest site loyal. They're colonial nesters. They like to live near to each other, whether that's on adjacent buildings or one building. It makes no difference. They're colonial nesters. The nests are built using items caught on the wing. There's no mud, as you would find with house martins and swallow nests. And generally speaking, the nest site's access holes are not visible on a building. And it's not only old and tall buildings as well. They can be found on many different buildings of different heights also. They are accessed by gaps and holes under the gutter in the roof line, under loose slates, roof tiles, inside cavities, little holes in the wall. They don't need a very big hole to get in, so 40 mil even, they'll be in there. And they nest directly inside that entrance hole, and they don't enter the building. So you would have to have a kind of ledge or gap, something to rest on immediately as they enter the nesting site. So I'm just going to show you, I know Edward has covered this a little bit in his talk as well, but I've just got some more natural nesting sites. When we say natural nesting sites, I think we're talking about the holes that are degraded naturally on a building to allow the swifts to get in. Here are just a few. And maybe through this you can imagine your own town or city or village, wherever you live, and try and think all the time and about where the swifts might be going in your patch. So a very common place for them to enter would be behind a roan pipe, a little gap in the flashing there. They'll sneak in there. To the right, top right, we've got a swift entering under the barge board where the wall undulates and there's some pointing come out of that, and he's going to go in the way. And above that, you can see some loose tiles and slates as well, where they sometimes they do go over the gutter and under the slates. And then below right, we've got a hole under the gutter, but also holes in the wall as well. This is an old distillery nearby, which obviously has really, really thick walls. So they can nip into a wee hole there and just nest immediately on the top on the wide space where the wall is there. And then this one is they're accessing, or they were accessing, underneath the tiles on the gable end of this house. Basically, these 1930s, 50s houses with the tiled roofs would have mortar filling in the gaps at the end, at the gable end there. And of course, over the years, these pieces of mortar have all dropped out. They've come to the end of their life cycle, I guess. And this is a council property, and unfortunately, council properties like this are getting re-roofed all the time, and these spots are getting filled. The roof might be replaced, but you will notice, if you have a look around some of these kind of places, you will notice that when they've done the roof, they're capping the end of the gable, so nothing else can enter in there again. So those are places that are being lost as well. We have mitigated this particular area, but those are quite common places for them to go. And they only need a tiny little bit between the sarking and the tile to nest in, and they're quite happy. Another few, top right, we've got the nesting where the pointings come out from the wall head between the corbels, between the wooden corbels there. Moving down, we've got an old church where they're going under the gutter, again where the pointings come out. They like to sometimes sneak in to the gaps that might be around lead dormer style windows as well. They will go in there. And also soffits and fascias. This particular one, I think, has been cut for some reason. Actually, it's just quite a square hole. But generally speaking, soffits and fascias would have normally been wooden, and they will have degraded to allow the swifts to enter and nest quite happily. Unfortunately, they are rotting, and they're now being replaced with UPVC, which doesn't degrade any further to let them in. So we've got all these problems, but these are the kind of places you can look for in your town, in your city, your village, and try and find those swifts. Okay, so why the decline in the urban environment? Well, big list here, I suppose. I'm going to read through it. Building renovations, refurbishments, demolitions and upgrades, cladding and roof insulation. These are biggies at the moment. They're not taking swifts into account. There's no requirement for inclusion in building surveys, so they're quite consistently being left out of building surveys. Eco upgrades, well, we've been doing this for quite some time now. The modern building methods and materials that we're now using to keep our homes nice and tightly sealed are excluding many building reliant species, and they don't degrade like the old materials would have done to let them in. Scaffolding, netting, building activity on a building within the breeding season. This is denying them access, and very common, unfortunately. Inadequate legislation is in place to protect active nest sites within the breeding season. It is really difficult, although we've got the Wildlife and Countryside Act, and in Scotland it's the Nature Conservation Scotland Act 2004, they really aren't up to scratch to protect swifts on buildings. No protection of nest sites whilst they're unoccupied. So while those swifts are away in Africa, there's nothing to protect their nest sites there. no effective protection for existing key colonies either. There's no additional nesting opportunities provided in our new builds and refurbs, so we're really not doing particularly well when it comes to looking after them. There was a recent, I've got it written here, there was a recent survey done by Wild Justice, many of you might have seen it, that only around 50% of developers and builders were implementing the biodiversity enhancements that were conditioned by planning. Part of the problem here is that they know full well that 9 times out of 10, there's no enforcement of these things. So your hedgehog highways, your insect boxes, your swift bricks, etc., they're just not happening. So it's pretty shameful, really, and a widespread lack of species knowledge. So many a time you speak to somebody and you mention a swift and they think swallow a house martin nest, visible to all. So it's really quite difficult. There's an awful lot preventing them being protected, unfortunately. So we have got our work cut out for us. So how is this affecting the swifts? Well, they are nest site loyal. The breeding pairs will struggle to find an alternate breeding site if the nest access is gone when they return from Africa. So it might have been pointed, filled up, there might be scaffolding across the entrance and they can't make access. And then a breeding opportunity can be lost if they can't find an alternative place to go. And as Edward explained just before, there are ways that they find these places, but it doesn't always happen, unfortunately. And since they only have one brood in a year, then the numbers are going to plummet. So swifts can lose their lives also trying to access these places that are being blocked off, because they are a very determined bird, very determined to get back to their nest site, and they have been known to knock themselves out and even die trying to get back in, which is really, really shameful. Nest sites and occupants are lost every year to building works within the breeding season. There's no protection for them, not real protection. It tends to be a case of being in the right place, knowing that they are there, being in the right place at the right time very often, just to stop things happening. Historical long-standing colonies of swift are lost every year, and they are a key to swift survival. I think my next slide will go into that a little bit. And then the nest finding process, established breeders will attract the non-breeders to nest nearby and enhance that colony. So by calling out of the nesting site, they will attract the non-breeders to look for a vacancy for themselves to use. And the vacancies, unfortunately, are few and far between. So I do wonder, when I'm out watching them in the summer, I wonder to myself, how many of these non-breeding birds are returning to Africa without having found a nest site for the following year. I don't know. So swift conservation, key steps, I would say. One, these aren't actually in any particular order. They're all part and parcel of each other, really. One, I would say, to protect existing nesting colonies. It's key to ensuring the continued breeding success of long-standing and historical swift colonies. So generations are bred in the same building for years, maybe hundreds of years in the same building. But if we break that breeding life cycle, we will lose the swift. So if we renovate that building that had a big colony in it, and we fill everything in and we don't give them anywhere to go, you've lost a massive colony of birds there, all generations, different ages, and you'll have to struggle to get them back. You really will, with other methods, other ways. So we do not want to lose them in the first place, and sadly we've been losing them for many years doing exactly that. And so also we need to provide new nesting opportunities. So additional provision is vital to mitigate against these kind of losses, and also to enhance the colonies that are already there. So we need to add more opportunities for them, which is where you will come in a little bit later. And surveying and recording is really important to keep in hold of them, because if we don't know where they're nesting, how can we protect them? So I want you all to think, this season, it would be great if you could all just this season, if you can manage it, get out there and survey for the swifts in your village, your town, whatever. It's not difficult to survey. You just need a little insight into how they work, and get to know your swifts in your village, in your town. Make it your mission this year to do that. and record your sightings, which is equally important. So ensure your sightings, your recordings are accessed by your local planners as well. So so all the people that are in charge with refurbishments, regenerations of the town, building developments, all these planning people, they need to access your records of where the existing active nest sites are in the town, so that they can be at least hopefully protected and enhanced. Okay, so I can't stress how important it is for these 3 points really to help the Swifts. So here are a few just to reinforce a few of the previous slides, here are a few things that builders and developers can do. I know, and I'm going to say thank you, a huge thank you to all the builders and developers. If there are any out there that are doing this, really thank you. But unfortunately, you are a very small percentage, so we need more of this. These are just some options available, and these are available not only builders and developers, but they're also available to you if you want to do a retrofit as well. Some of them are retrofit, whether you could do that yourself if you were doing some work on your house. So top left, we've got Action for Swift. It's a half brick entrance piece. I use them a lot here because where I am in Aberdeenshire, there aren't really any brick buildings. So they're all stone and they're granite, rough stone, that kind of thing. So these fit in beautifully with bespoke projects, especially listed building projects as well, where you don't want them to be seen. So as you can see, this little half brick entrance piece has been inserted between the snicket bricks on the wall there, and it'll sit very, very nicely and neatly under the gutter line, and so it won't affect the look of the building. And then all that's needed is a plywood box built in behind at the right specification, right size for a nesting chamber, and then the birds will nest peacefully in there and be contained within. So it's a smashing thing, and you can have them in grey and you can get them in red as well, slightly different colours to suit. And then we've got the Shredler Type 1A Swift brick. Again, it is its own nesting chamber, and this particular one has a lip on it, as you can see at the front, for a rendered situation on a building there. And this you can see them in this garage here, where one of our local builders has put in a dozen of these in his little development. And they look pretty smashing, I think you'll say. So he's put those in. They are a good option as well. And then at the bottom, we've got the S brick from Action for Swift. This is an excellent provision. You can see it there in the brick wall in the little insert with two little swifts peeping out there. And you can see it also, the grey version along the top of the wall, the stone wall, which I think looks pretty good, and you know, you can't see it too much. These things can be made as a feature, or they can be hidden away. You know, it depends on your project. And on the far right there, we've got we're showing the inside of the S brick, and these bricks should comply with British standards. I've got a little bit here that's the specification for the British standard, which I can never run off. BS 4 2021 of 2022. It's integral nest boxes design and installation for new developments. You can always look it up. It states that Swift bricks should have a 65 by 30 mil access hole, which is a universal size hole. Sometimes you'll get nest boxes with a 65-28 size access hole, which actually excludes starlings. But for British standards, it has to be universal of a 30 mil, so the starlings can also use them. The starlings are also red listed. Obviously, they're building reliant species, just as swifts are. So they need help as well. They really do. They are losing their homes in exactly the same way. So these bricks, British standard, will allow starlings in there as well. There are, just before I move on, there are some a lot of starlings will nest, and the swifts will actually almost wait for the starlings to finish nesting before they move on into the available nesting chamber or nesting hole. And then other times there can be really quite vicious fights between them all. So starlings can be quite a formidable. I wouldn't want to pick a fight with a starling, put it that way. But sometimes it can happen. But these things, nature, you know, leave it to nature, I suppose. It's quite a conversation piece, but we do need to help starlings as well as swifts. So it's something to bear in mind if you're going to be putting some provision in. Just the last one on the far left here is a Vivara Pro box, and that was Aberdeenshire Council, bless them, they put those in for their new development in Huntley, and I think they look quite nice, I think, as a feature. So that's another thing you can do with Swift bricks. But there's a load of them. There's Ibstock, there's Manthorpe, there's a whole raft of different Swift bricks available on the market for people to consider. And I think Kieran's going to share my link, however he does that in the blog or whatever, I've got a petition running at the moment for that. If you'd like to sign that, that would be terrific at some point. And then there's more to what you can do, actually. Nest boxes, external provision. The others were integrated provision. They do have a longer lifespan, you know, and they are maintenance free, etc., etc. But then the external boxes that I'm going to show here are something that are a little bit nearer to home. You can do these a little bit easier, perhaps yourself. So here are a few examples. So we've got on the left, we've got our wonderful John Stimpson's Model 30 Swiftness boxes. They have a white UPVC roof, which gives them more weatherproofing, and it also prevents predators from sitting on the roof and swiping the swift as it goes by. It also keeps the temperature regulated somewhat as our summers are getting hotter, and there's more and more stories every year or reports every year of swifts and swift chicks jumping the nest because they're too hot, and this is going to be a continuing problem, I'm afraid, with climate change. So we need to make sure that we do site these boxes correctly, quality maybe not quantity, but this Model 30 Swiftness box can be sited on a southerly aspect. And then moving across, we've got an impeccable nest box. These are fiberglass. These can come in a whole range of colours. Choose your colour, free of charge, to make it the colour you want it to be. And they are thermally regulated, so they will keep the temperatures down for the swifts as well. And you can also add to that an additional canopy that they offer, which also helps to regulate the temperature in an even hotter place. So that's something to bear in mind. They're smashing, and they come in double chambers like this one, single chambers, 4 chambers. You can choose what it is that you like, and these are quite good, actually, excellent, in fact, on a steel building, that kind of thing, where they kind of look more the part. But it's your choice. There's something for everyone. And then on the top right here, I'm showing the Woodcrete nest box. These weigh a ton. They're very, very heavy. They're made from wood, concrete and fibres, and they're very, very heavy, but they are quite good. Again, I use them on old buildings, distillery buildings, stone buildings up here in Scotland, because they blend in quite well with the surrounding buildings. But they are very heavy, and I don't think there's any evidence on the thermal properties keeping temperatures regulated. So I would avoid the southerly aspect for that one. As with the RSPB Swiftness box below, that doesn't have that white roof on it. So again, excellent box, but avoid the southerly aspect. Just skipping back to bottom right, we've got a beautiful gable box here with, I think it's 8 chambers in there. This is a bespoke thing, so all those handy people out there that might want to make something, this can be made to suit the exact angles of your gable, and they are really, really nice looking, I think. So that's quite a project box, but you know, they work. Again, DIY, make your own boxes. I think Edward and myself, we both have plans for making boxes, as do many other groups and Swift contacts. So if you fancy making your own nest boxes, do that. You may fancy even making boxes for your local Swift group. So that would be really handy for some of the Swift groups to have some boxes near to hand. And then on the left here, bottom left, we've got a call system. This is the kind that I put together, but they all are much of a muchness, I think. And you can also consider a webcam as well, depending on the project that you've got going, just to make a complete project of it. The Swift call system, as I think Edward mentioned, is replicating the calls of the established nesting birds to the non-breeding birds to attract them to the colony. So if you're putting up nest boxes, it's a long-term commitment. When they start using the boxes, they will return to those boxes. So, you know, you're in it for the long term. But the calls will bring them over. And I have to say, you can, maybe I'm not the best example, but I'm on year 4 and my swifts haven't gone in my boxes at home yet. And I've been playing the call system and I've been playing and they've been looking and they've been looking and they haven't gone in. So I'm hoping this year might be the year where I get them to go in. But it really can be instantaneous, or it could take 4 or 5 years even for them to find and be confident to enter the nest boxes. And again, it all depends. Playing your call system will attract them and keep them interested. And if you've got swifts in the near vicinity as well, that obviously does the job for you. That will attract them as well. So these are all things that you can think of to do yourself. Okay, so this is just a wee and I've got I was reading this through and I've got all the pictures of the gallery on the right-hand side of the screen here. So I might make it up as I go along, but I'll read through it. So retaining existing swift colonies, a little bit of a run through here. So what I'll ask you to do is survey your swifts, record your swifts, and ensure your planners can access your records. Okay, get in touch with those planners and ask them where they get their records from. If you know of a colony in your town or village or whatever, and there may be a future threat to it, please keep an eye on planning applications. Listen out for all the village rumours, the gossip going around as to what might happen to that building over there that you know has swifts on it. Act at the early stages. Keep an eye on it. Seek advice. And even find your local swift group to help you out, because it's quite an undertaking to try and intervene on a planning application, if you like. And then if there's an immediate threat to known swift colonies, you know, you drive down into the town one morning and there's work in progress, or the scaffolding's just gone up in a few hours of that morning, and you know there's swifts there, and there is a situation, it's in the breeding season, the swifts are getting anxious and so on. Collect evidence, but act immediately. Please act immediately. Contact the police, ask for the wildlife crime officer to get involved without delay. Contact the planners also if it possibly may be a local authority contract. Maybe they're putting up solar panels or putting in new windows, that kind of thing, and they've got scaffolding up and what have you. So, you know, maybe that's a situation as well. But do seek advice on that, because that can be quite, as I say, quite an undertaking. But please don't turn away from it. These swifts need to get in. And as part of the Wildlife and Countryside Act, it is actually an offence to prevent them getting access to their nests. So please look out for that. And if you've got swifts yourself, I needn't say really, obviously roof works outside the breeding season only, makes sense. But be in charge of your roofer. Many people have said to me, and I do apologise again, I'm going to apologise again to all roofers out there that are doing their bit for swifts. Thank you so much, but I am going to make the apologies. But you are a small percentage. And most often, a lot of people say to me, I'm getting my roof done. I've spoken to the roofer and they're all fine with birds and buildings and that kind of thing. And they're all and then turn around and they've filled in the holes. So please be in charge of your roofer. Don't let them be in charge of you. Do tell them what you want to be done and how to do it, and preferably not in the breeding season. And if the known nest sites have to be lost to the works for whatever reason, then please reinstate them with either a built-in integrated option, as we were talking about, or an external nest box as near to that area, original area as possible. And then for providing nesting opportunities rather than provide nesting opportunities, again, same thing, survey, record, ensure your planners can access your records. Look out for possible community projects, get homeowners involved. Maybe you want to set up a swift street or something like that, put out some flyers, whatever, do that kind of thing. Look around your town for suitable buildings that might, you know, maybe a community hall that could put up half a dozen swift nest boxes, get the community involved. You may have to look for funding and that kind of thing, but you know, some of these things can lead to other things. But just have a look and see if there's any public buildings that could be used for swift nest boxes, and see how you can get on with that. Maybe a library, public library, that kind of thing, or even involve the council on their own buildings. Churches as well make great projects. We've done a few church projects where we've made bespoke nest boxes to put in behind the louvs of the church and used a call system. And so that's a really good option for providing for swifts as well. Depends how much you want to get involved or how much you can, or your means, your time restraints, and everything, how you can get involved. Question your local authority on their policy. Do they have a policy on protecting swifts? And create a relationship with those local authority planners. Watch out for your local planning applications again, and add comments to those applications. Request swift bricks or nest boxes in suitable new developments. Add your comments, make your voice heard for the swifts. Okay, so there's so much people can do to help the swifts, and everyone can do something, even if it's just a little leaflet drop or something like that. So we can all do something to help them. I'm just looking at the time here, sorry, I think I'm on time. This is a list of links. I'm not going to run through them. I've given them to Kieran to share with you later. I'm just leaving it for 2 seconds so you can admire the beautiful photography. And then this is just a blurb about the group and what we've been up to. And I don't think I need to run through that. I think we're on time. You can have a look at it later. And all I want to say is thank you for helping Swift. Thank you for turning up today. And I hope it's been of some use. I can't go into all the details in the amount of time that we've got, unfortunately. But if almost every one of you could put up a box or just get the word out in your town or village. So many people say, oh, we used to have swifts in this village or this town, and you think, yeah, and it's not necessarily specifically anybody's fault that they're not there anymore, but just a little bit of refurb on a couple of colonies, buildings, and they're gone. And if nobody's there to replace or protect or watch out for them, you've lost them. So please, let's get them all coming back to the villages and towns. And thanks very much for listening to me ramble on. Thank you.